Hello, this is Anna Laura Brown, host of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where we talk about how to actually thrive and heal your autoimmune condition rather than just covering it up with pills or changing your diet and hoping you'll feel better one day. We feature solo episodes on helpful topics and interviews with guests who have actually walked in your shoes with autoimmune disorders and/or who have years of experience in helping people to thrive and not just survive with autoimmune challenges. I started this podcast because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2018 and wanted to inspire hope and transform health for people with autoimmune challenges. So keep listening and let's get you the help and hope you really need. This is the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast. Okay, everybody, and today I'd like to welcome Ralda Gorges to the podcast. And Ralda is also another Hashimoto's thriver, I like to call him that, or we can call ourselves sometimes the hashtag that's really popular on Instagram is Hashimoto's warrior. So Ralda and I are going to talk a little bit about her journey with Hashimoto's, what she's done, what she does to help other people, and then we're going to chat a little bit between ourselves since, both of us have had the same kind of thing. So Ralda, welcome to Autoimmune Rehab, and why don't you start off by telling us a little bit, just who are you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. So I am certified functional medicine holistic health coach. So I had helped many people for the last 8 years with autoimmune diseases and also cardiovascular and GI issues, because my journey with autoimmune disease involved many aspects of the autoimmune, which is the gut, the stress, and the cardiovascular, the insulin resistant, metabolic syndrome, all that together. So that's my experience with autoimmune, which is I put it into remission right now, and really I am thriving. I have no symptoms, and really I hope I could give hope for the people who are really struggling with autoimmune disease, especially Hashimoto right now. So
yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, the whole especially when you throw in the whole cardiovascular thing and everything like that. I haven't, fortunately, I guess, ever encountered that myself. But yeah, so how did that kind of all? Well, why don't you start off at the beginning? Tell us a little bit. How do you specifically define Hashimoto's thyroiditis?
Yeah, so Hashimoto thyroiditis is an autoimmune disease that attacks the thyroid gland, make us feel like tired, sluggish, depressed, weight gain, lack of sleep at night. All these symptoms, I struggled with it for so many years until I figured out what was the reason exactly, which is actually what was a multiple reason for my situation, which is probably we're gonna talk about it a little bit more. Yeah, that's what it is. Attack the immune system. I used to have like rashes all over my body, weight gain nonstop. I couldn't sleep well, all that with Hashimoto, So yeah.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah,
curious
that's a lot
about
of
you. What was your symptom?
So for me, it was mostly, I would occasionally get rashes, but not a whole lot. For me, it was a lot of fatigue, some weight gain,
Mhm.
I would say fatigue was probably the biggest symptom for me, more than likely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But then again, like I said, I didn't have some of the other like cardiovascular and some of those other things. So how did you know about some of the other issues that were going on before you found out
No,
about Hashimoto's,
no,
or how
you
did that
see,
work for you?
at that time when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto, it's like I was into my journey into studying functional medicine. And that was one of the reasons that started me on that journey to know, really to dig deeper into my journey and see why I developed Hashimoto and why I have that, and what's the symptoms, why I have that, what's going on with my body. So when I did the blood work and I went to an integrative cardiologist, he told me that I have insulin resistance and I start to have a plaque on my arteries. So I was like completely scared of all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So I think my insulin resistance was creating extra inflammation in my body and creating the trigger for the autoimmune disease also to get worse than before, than when the time started. So that one aspect when it's come to cardiovascular metabolic syndrome, the insulin resistance, which is I start to watch my diet, going on low carb. And that helped me really a lot in my journey, because by reducing my carbohydrate, it reduced the inflammation in my body. So with Hashimoto, for me, it's everything is interconnected, I would say. The other aspect for me was the stress. So a stressful lifestyle at that time. I moved from Canada to the US. I get married. I have a new lifestyle. So physical stress was one aspect, and psychological stress, that's another aspect, to adapt to a new life, and start my own journey here and my own business, and everything is like all together was stressful to my body. So like the insulin resistance, the stress, and plus I had gut issues as well. So my gut issues started when I really was young. I took a lot of antibiotic when I was a child, but as we get older, we don't think about that. That could be part of our, problem. But at that time, taking a lot of antibiotic had really created leaky gut for me, which is
yeah.
created a gut dysbiosis. Do you associate yourself with something like that?
Well, I know that leaky gut is an issue for pretty much everybody with autoimmune, for sure. Yeah. So that's a good thing for people to keep in mind. If you've got any kind of autoimmune, you've got leaky gut to some degree.
Yes.
For me, I've definitely had, more than I would say normal things like allergies, food sensitivities, history with that kind of thing. I was lucky because I actually almost never had antibiotics as a kid. So it wasn't antibiotics that triggered it in me. Mine's a whole different story, but I think a lot of mine was actually mercury from a mercury filling in my mouth that started leaking, was partly what started that trigger. And then I had probably one primary traumatic event. I was basically fired from a job that I thought was going to be my whole career. And then it came all crashing down on me, and it was about 4 years before my diagnosis, but my doctor told me I'd probably had it at least that long. So, stress and trauma definitely plays a role for people.
Yeah, absolutely. So usually when we have a leaky gut, that's mean some particle of the food leak to the bloodstream and create an immune reaction. So, and that aggravates plus much more the autoimmune disease in the body. And definitely I had that from all the stress and the antibiotic that I had taken all my life. So so I start to have gut issues like bloating, and gas and all kind of things going on in my stomach, and pain when I eat gluten. So I did testing, a lot of functional testing, which is one of them was testing myself for gluten sensitivity. And I ended up having really severe gluten sensitivity, and all my numbers came back red. That's, alert for me that I have to avoid gluten completely. So I become gluten-free and dairy-free for a while. But with the time, I could eat dairy now. No, it's not like before, but I'm still gluten-free because gluten is really mimic the thyroid hormone. So really, as having Hashimoto, we should be completely gluten-free. And I'm sure you experienced some.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I was actually already gluten-free for 4 years before my Hashimoto's diagnosis, though. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, there's got to be other things going on there. And I'm still gluten-free to this day because, I have pretty severe reactions. So,
exactly. And almost like throughout the years, I've been 8 years gluten-free, but throughout the years, I tested myself second time. I want to make sure, can I go back to my gluten? But, again, the result came back, I'm very gluten sensitive. The minute I eat gluten, I have not immediate reaction, but like in 2 days, I will see rashes on my skin. And I will start to have like a gut issues, so I feel it.
Well, and that's another thing too for people to be aware of too, is that a lot of times the gut issues with the allergies, the sensitivities, it doesn't happen immediately. It's not like you eat the gluten or the cheese and all of a sudden you're sick within an hour. So that's another tricky thing, but something for people to keep in mind too, is that if you've got potential issues with gluten and dairy, those are the biggest ones, you may not get the symptom till later. And so you have to keep that in mind.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you could probably get away. I could myself eat like a goat product or like sheep product from dairy. And that is less invasive on the stomach than regular dairy usually. So I'm okay with that. But when it's come to, if I eat a lot of dairy, then it's a problem. But, fermented dairy is okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And what I find is interesting for me too is is that I can actually still tolerate some of like the croissants and bread and things in Europe, but I can't tolerate them in North America.
yes, exactly.
And
It's funny you said that, because when I travel to Europe, I eat some croissant and I have no reaction there.
same. And the thing is, what I've started to realize too, and this leads to a whole nother can of worms, but something else people need to be aware of is that a lot of what we're eating or consuming or putting on our skin, all these things, it's the toxins and the chemicals. And I think for a lot of us, it's not the actual gluten itself we're necessarily intolerant to, it's the chemicals that are sprayed on the gluten and the way that the gluten is processed here in North America. Whereas in Europe, they use more of the organic flour. It's not processed in the same way. And so we don't have the same kind of reaction.
Exactly.
So something else to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely different. So like, I can't wait to go on vacation to enjoy my gluten there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked about some of these questions. So what would you say, how would you answer the question specifically if somebody were to ask you, could stress be silently sabotaging your thyroid function?
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing I have to admit, I was like a exercise addict. So, I didn't know for a long time that my extreme exercise, I will go for a run, for 45 minutes, and didn't think nothing of it. And I will take 2 classes at the gym, and didn't think that physical exercise so hard that harming my thyroid or activating my autoimmune disease. And that was one of the other things that I had really to, back up or cut down or take different kind of exercise or movement like, yoga and less invasive like exercise for thyroid to calm the immune system, though, then instead of activating the immune system with my extreme exercise. So that was for me. For other people, some of my clients, I see a lot of people like a trauma in their life, could be like extra stress in their life. Until they heal themselves from that stress, from that trauma, the healing won't happen. So really, we have to forgive ourselves about whatever it is in our life was going on in the past and move on. The fact of forgiving ourselves or forgiving someone in our life have a big impact on autoimmune disease. So I even seen it with other autoimmune disease as well. So forgiveness is a key for autoimmune disease to start really the healing process.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Because you think about the core of what's really going on here with your autoimmune is that your thyroid, your immune system's basically attacking your thyroid. And in some cases, it can be your other tissues and things like that. And with other autoimmune disorders, it's your other tissues. That's not a normal thing for your body to basically be attacking itself. And
Yes.
part of the reason from an emotional standpoint that it starts happening and then it spills over into the physical is because of either, like you said, you haven't especially forgiven yourself. Now,
Yeah.
granted, if there's other people in your life that you're holding a grudge towards, you really should forgive those people too. But if you haven't forgiven yourself or you don't have good, proper self-esteem and view yourself in a good light, then yeah, you can definitely, that can either aggravate or to some degree even create autoimmune issues.
Yes, absolutely. And even if you don't you forgive other people, you forgive other people for yourself at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to carry that, anger or, grudges against another person, and it's affecting you in the end, So yeah, I find out that it's a big point there. That's psychologically people maybe is not aware of it, or or they don't want to go there and approach it because it's so hard to get to take it in charge and take charge of it and resolve it. Yeah, that's what it is, and that create inflammation when we we are in a chronic stress always. is very inflammatory to the body and activate and worse the autoimmune disease as well when we have that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So we've covered that. Now, the other thing that sometimes people become aware of this, sometimes they're maybe not quite as aware of it. I know it took me a little bit to figure this out after, but then once I finally got tuned into it, I was like, oh yeah, is that a lot of us are also deficient in some vitamins and minerals. So things like vitamin D and selenium are the most common ones.
Yes.
So how does somebody really figure out what they're deficient in, how much to take, all that kind of stuff?
I mean, technically, you know, at that time, there is a micronutrient testing that people could, you know, get tests for it from functional medicine testing that, you know, they could like reach out to me. And if we do those testing, so we test all these nutrients, vitamin D, selenium, zinc, and iodine. Usually those vitamin and minerals are mostly people are deficient with autoimmune disease. So it's really, really important to get, especially vitamin D at certain level. Is not like the level that usually doctor, like, you know, say if you're at 30 milligram in your blood work, you're okay. No, you have to get at a higher point between 50 and 70 to really be protective for autoimmune disease. So yeah, the nutrient deficiency, it's a huge, and almost every person with Hashimoto have a nutrient deficiency. And so like eating 2 Brazilian nuts per day, something like that, it's very helpful. Eating food rich in zinc, like pumpkin seed, you know, shellfish, and food rich in iodine, like seaweed and stuff like that, is very, very helpful for the nutrients, getting it naturally as well. So yeah, so that's you know, my deficiency. I had very low vitamin D when I discovered, you know, my autoimmune disease. So and zinc as well, you know, zinc was my major deficiency. And until now, I take 2 pills of zinc per day. You know, it's like, somehow there is genetic component to it as well. Sometimes we inherit certain things from our parent, beside the environmental side. Biologically, sometimes we need certain nutrients more than other people. So really getting tested, it's a key to know where we are when it's come to our nutrients levels.
For sure, absolutely. And I think one of the other challenges too, which you hit on it too, is that a lot of people, you think about things like Brazil nuts and seaweed would be good examples. Those aren't components of a lot of people's diet, you know?
Yes,
Yet
exactly.
they have really high counts of selenium and zinc, yet they're not things that a lot of us eat. And in most cases, we're probably not getting what we need from the diet because we just simply don't eat a lot of the foods that contain enough of that in it. So
yes, it's almost when we eat with Hashimoto, I feel like with autoimmune disease, you have to eat very mindfully and make sure you conclude all the nutrients that your body needs. Eating a lot of protein, a whole food diet, it's an autoimmune diet like the ape diet, you know, like very, very nutrient dense diet. I know a lot of people think, oh, I can't eat cruciferous vegetables because, you know, with thyroid disease, you can't eat vegetables, not healthy.
But there's I think a lot of myths and things that get circulated around there. There's a lot of things about that people sometimes don't understand. The way I've had it explained to me in a program that I went through on healing the thyroid is that it's not that you can't have the cruciferous, you know, like the broccoli and the cauliflower, that kind of thing. It's just and spinach and things, is you really should be eating it cooked.
Exactly.
And be really careful that it's not, you know, if you had it with every single meal, then that might become an issue. But it's more about the things, like you said, that mimic the thyroid. There's also people could research what's called goiter-centric foods, which actually can include some things like even strawberries and almonds. So, you know, that doesn't mean that you can't have them. You just want to eat them in a little bit less of a quantity and focus more on the things. And so, I mean, don't not eat, you know, your broccoli, your spinach, your greens, because those things are very good for you and actually really good on your digestive system too. So
yeah, absolutely. Like, again, eating a whole food diet rich in fiber and nutrients. Fiber is so important as well. you know, and omega-3 as well, like, and probiotic and prebiotic food. So a lot of these vegetables, like let's say asparagus, it's a prebiotic. So if we don't eat asparagus, so we're missing a lot of natural prebiotic for the gut. In addition of taking probiotic and prebiotic supplements, it's important to eat food that are rich in probiotic, like kimchi, sauerkraut, stuff like that. So those are like create new bacteria in the gut and enrich the gut microbiome and make it rich in multiple probiotic that strengthens the gut. When the gut is strengthened, the immune system is stronger, because 70% of the immune system, it's in the guts. So it's important to make the gut very strong by eating a whole food diet, rich in nutrient, rich in fiber, like onion, garlic. There are prebiotic food as well. So they are so important as well. We could eat them cooked or raw, and or both, you know, it depends the person what they like. But I think eating a variety of whole food diet is so important, and so many people like limit themselves to very specific food to eat every day, the same food over and over and over, and that's not healthy in general. So I think varying your diet, it's so important by getting different nutrients in the body as well that way.
Oh,
And
absolutely. And I've discovered too, and I learned this when I initially did my food sensitivity testing around the same time I got my Hashimoto's diagnosis, was that you've got a certain food. Well, you really need to, if you go on more kind of like a rotation basis with foods, you'll have less food sensitivities to things, and you'll have just better gut health. It's kind of like the whole concept of, you know, eating the rainbow. You literally want to be eating different things and different colors, and, you know, and that's great if you have favorite foods, but you've still got to expand your diet.
exactly.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, like the most food that are people sensitive to it is gluten, dairy, eggs. Those are the three food. So people like, because they eat them a lot. So I know people like they eat eggs every day, but eventually they will develop like food sensitivity to it from eating it too much. So
Yeah.
also, you know, so mix and match, and eating different kind of food is excellent for autoimmune disease as well, you know. So
Absolutely. And I really feel like that's part of the reason too that I'm now able to handle gluten when I go to Europe, is in another reason is because, let's face it, I don't go to Europe a ton, but when I do, you know, I've healed my gut enough, you know, by rotating it and by not eating it when I'm at home in the US, that I can tolerate a little bit of it when I am in Europe. So, you know,
yes, absolutely. And you know, the gut healing also, it's important, like finding out if somebody have a gut dysbiosis. Like I had candida overgrowth myself, and I had a leaky gut, so I had to take certain supplement to heal my gut. So finding out by doing like stool testing, stuff like that. I did stool testing as well in the past, and I found out what I had. So if we don't know what we have, how we treat it. So it's so important to find out exactly what we have, so to get treated for it, to help ourselves and move forward. I think it's a key for autoimmune disease, because it's never one thing, it's always multiple things that going on with the autoimmune.
for sure, absolutely. So if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I know I've got this, but I'm a little overwhelmed, what would be the very first thing that you would tell somebody to do?
I mean, first, I think it's just like, you know, if you like to give me a call, I'm very happy to talk to anybody for free to see what's exactly the struggle and how we could start approaching it, because each person is different and each person is at a different stage in their life, and whatever they are ready to move on, we'll work together and see where are you at in your health journey, and start the changes and start to improve the autoimmune disease and approach it in multiple ways.
That's awesome. That's great. I love that. So yeah, so we will definitely include information on how people can get in touch with you, probably your website. Do you have like something for people to get on an email list, or some kind of a free something that you want to also link, and then we can tell people what it is?
Yes, you could send me your email, and I could send you information regarding the thyroid and email me at wellnessralda@gmail.com, and I will be happy to send you information about thyroid healing, and we could talk further down.
Okay, awesome, cool. And so, Lynn, the last question I always like to ask every guest is, if you could look back in time to before you got your Hashimoto's, what kind of things do you feel like you know now that you wish you had known then?
Oh my God. All the stuff I talked about, everything.
Maybe one more specific little thing that you're thinking, okay, if only I had known that would have made things easier.
Yeah, I think I wish I knew how to like approach the gut, or like eating more diverse food as when I was younger, or getting more nutrient dense food. Even if I am Mediterranean, I lived in a Mediterranean, but at that time, I didn't study functional medicine. I didn't know what's nutrient dense, so I ate whatever, like every child, like every human being, whatever you inherit from your parents, you repeat the same thing. So yeah. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's great. Okay, so anything else that we missed that we didn't talk about?
I think we cover pretty much a little bit of every aspect of autoimmune disease, and I think the big takeaway, I would say, the most important thing for autoimmune is a stress reduction, or meditation. Stress reduction could be done in many ways for different people. Meditation or yoga or any kind of these practices, really helpful for autoimmune disease and to calm the immune system, whatever the stage is for the disease is. So
awesome, cool. So thanks so much for coming on, Ralda. We will include your contact information, website, anything else that people need to get in touch with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Thanks.